And as I started reading this, and as we get into this message, it'll make sense. Right off the bat, probably not going to make a whole lot of sense, okay? But here it is. It'll be on the screens. This is the idea, that our salvation is not like a revolving door, okay? Our salvation is not a revolving door. And like I said, off the bat, probably makes no sense at all. You're like, what does our salvation have to do with doors? I don't know. I'll explain it, okay? What does a revolving door do? A revolving door, have everybody ever been stuck in a revolving door? I've never been stuck, never personally been stuck or had any issues with revolving doors. Justin has. He'll tell you about them. But revolving doors, they're really easy. They're these cool things that we walk in, and you can walk into the door, and if you've got a little kid behind you, you're in trouble because they push the door real fast, and you get stuck, and you have to walk out and then back in. But you walk into the building, and in my experience, if you get distracted, even in the slightest, you get a little bit distracted, your window to get in the building closes really fast, right? And then all of a sudden, you're back outside, and you're like, dude, I was supposed to be inside. Like, how'd I get out here, right? And so in this verse, Jeremiah really explains to us how our faith is not like that. How our faith is not like a revolving door. Instead, it's something different, right? It's something awesome. And I really should say that our salvation is not like a revolving door anymore. Okay? Because at one point, at one time, it really was. And that's what Jeremiah talks about. Okay? So let's just read Jeremiah 3:16. It'll be on the screens. If you have a Bible, open it up. We'll just read it, and then we'll start from there, okay? So here it is. In those days, when your numbers have increased greatly in the land, declares the Lord, people will no longer say, the ark of the covenant of the Lord. It will never enter their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, nor will another one be made. Well, that's all of Scripture, okay? It's short this week. But all three of our points are going to come right out of that. We're going to look at three things here that Jeremiah tells us in this verse. And those three things are going to make this whole revolving door nonsense make sense to everybody, okay? So the first thing is this. The Ark of the Covenant is gone. That's what he tells us. Right there at the start, he says, the Ark, no one's going to talk about it. It's not going to be remembered, right? They're not going to think about it. It's gone. The Ark of the Covenant is gone. And without any context, that doesn't really make much sense, right? The Ark of the Covenant, have you guys ever seen Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark? That's right. He's looking for it, right? He's looking for the Ark. So obviously it's lost. We don't know where it is. But it's gone. It's gone in a more literal sense, right? Jeremiah's telling us that one day that the ark is just going to be gone completely. And so 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Justin talked about the ark a little bit. He was talking about the temples, right? Our bodies as a temple, and our church being the temple of God, and it no longer being where the ark is, but where we are. And so the Ark of the Covenant is this place where God resides, right? That's where his presence is. Right? In that time, they believed that God was there. He was working in other people and other places, but really, God's presence was right there at the Ark of the Covenant. And inside the Ark of the Covenant is the Ten Commandments. I don't know if you know that or not, but the Ten Commandments are in there. And so the covenant was this idea that God had made, this agreement that God had made with the people, that if you follow these 10 things, you follow these commandments here, you'll earn your salvation. You follow these, and you'll earn your salvation, and then you're good, right? Follow these rules, and you'll be all right. But what happens is we're people, right? And we mess up, and we make mistakes, right? And we can't do that. We can't follow those 10 commandments. So then God was like, all right, well, then I'll give you a way, right? I'll give you a way to make up for this. And so they ended up, like, when they mess up, they make mistakes, they had this one day of the year, Yom Kippur, and it is the day of atonement, right? Where they get to go, and they make a sacrifice to God to make up for their sins. Right? That's how they made up for their sins. So do you see it now? Do you see how that faith right there is a revolving door? You walk in, you're doing good, we're having a good time, we're walking in, and then something happens, you get distracted, and all of a sudden you're walking back out, and you're like, whoa, I'm outside. How'd I get out here again? And then you make a sacrifice, right? You sacrifice, and then all of a sudden you're going back in, right? We're coming back in again. So at that time, our faith was like a revolving door. But Jeremiah tells us that the Ark of the Covenant is going to be gone. The whole thing is going to be gone. He doesn't explain why, right? In that day, he doesn't tell them why. And I'm pretty sure if we were sitting in that time and Jeremiah was like, yeah, it's going to be gone, we'd be like, you're wrong, right? That's where God is. Where's God going to sit? If that's gone, what are we going to do, right? God's just going to be gone with it? But we don't have to do that, right? We don't have to think about it like that because we see the whole story, right? We have the whole story. We know why the ark is gone. The ark is gone because Jesus came, right? Jesus came and sacrificed himself for us so that we wouldn't have to sacrifice anymore, right? He died for us. He was the ultimate sacrifice so that we would no longer have to do that. to earn our salvation. We no longer have to earn salvation in any way because, look, we can't earn it, right? We tried and we tried and we tried and we just couldn't do it, right? Even now, we try and we try and we can't do it on our own because Jesus is the way. In John 3:15, it says that everyone who believes may have eternal life. Romans 10:9, if you declare with your mouth Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. Jesus is our only way to salvation, right? It's no longer this idea that we do what we can and we'll earn it somehow. We'll get there one day if we just keep going. But instead, look what happens. Jesus came, and now you're walking through that revolving door. But instead of when you get inside, you get distracted, something pulls your attention, and all of a sudden you're back outside, now we have Jesus, right? Jesus is walking with us. He's leading us. And you walk in, and you get distracted, and he goes, no, don't get distracted here. Let's go in, right? Let's make it all the way into this thing so that you're not walking back and forth and in and out of salvation because you're following Jesus now. You're following him. The second thing that Jeremiah tells us is that we're not going to miss the ark. We're not going to miss the Ark of the Covenant. It's going to be gone, and we're not going to think about it. We're not going to miss it. And you guys are probably like, well, hold on here. Like, of course I'm not going to miss it. Like, I don't want to sacrifice things when I make mistakes. I don't know about you guys, but I've only recently started thinking about that idea of, like, when I mess up, having to kill a small lamb. You ever thought about that? Every time that you messed up, you had to sacrifice something. Man, we'd be out of animals. They'd be gone, right? We don't have it. We don't have the ability to be good enough to earn it. So why would I miss it? Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to kill something every time I make a mistake. But I'll show you how we end up missing the ark. How many of you guys have ever messed up on something? And, well, Ian, I appreciate your honesty. That wasn't the whole question, though, okay? How many of you guys you've messed up on something and you've been like, all right, man, God, I'm sorry, I messed up, but now I'm going to go do this stuff. I'm going to go do something awesome for you, God. I'm going to go do a trip. I'm going to go serve. I'm going to do something for you, God, so that you'll love me again. So that I can get back good with you again, God, because I made a mistake. Or you said, man, God, I'm sorry I messed up. Give me another chance. Give me one more chance, God. I won't do it again. I won't make that same mistake again. I messed up this time, but next time I'll be better, right? I'll be better next time. Or without even making mistakes, you just decide, I'm going to go do some awesome stuff. I'm going to go do missions. I'm going to serve in the church. And you're doing it because you're like, man, God is going to love me so much after this, right? God is going to love me so much because I've done all this cool stuff for him. Well, guess what? That's missing the Ark of the Covenant, right? That is missing, that now you're trying to live in that life again. We are trying to live in that life where our deeds are going to be what gets us there. It's not God's grace, it's our deeds now. In Romans 11:6, it says, if by grace, then it cannot be based on works. If it were, grace would no longer be grace. If we try and earn it on our own, man, God's grace means nothing, right? It's not God's grace that's doing the work for us anymore. We're trying to do it by ourselves. So why do we do that? Why do we go back into that? I've been working with kids, you can call them kids, I guess, for like 9 years of my life, since I was 16. I've been working with kids. How many of you guys have kids, children, siblings? Nobody? You guys are all alone? Okay. All right. Right? So how many of you guys have kids? I appreciate the honesty again, Ian. Kids or siblings, or you've ever worked with kids that are younger than you? Okay? When I was there, I learned something really early in working with kids. And it was told me by like a mentor who was actually a boss, but he really viewed him like a mentor. And he told me this, and when he first said it, I was like, no, you're wrong. Like, that's not true. There's no way that can be true, okay? Because it just made no sense in my mind. And at the time, I was like, that just makes no sense. He told me this. He told me that, in his words, he said, kids crave structure. And I was like, what? No, kids like freedom, right? All kids want to do is have fun. That's all they want to do. And then as I got to working and I got to being with kids more, I started realizing that you give kids freedom, and what do? And they run wild, right? They just go crazy. And all of a sudden, you've got like bad behaviors, and kids are hitting each other and like tackling each other, and like there's just no structure for them. But you give a kid you give a group of kids an activity that they love, an activity that they like to do, a structured activity, man, they're going to have just as much fun, and you're not going to have all that extra stuff. And they want to have structure. And as I learned that, I started looking at the people I was working with, the adults that I was working with, and I started thinking about, like, in our lives. I think as humans, we've decided that we like structure too, right? We like to have structure in our lives because it's easy, right? It's easier to have structure. I wake up at 7:30, I go downstairs, I make coffee, right? I get ready, I take a shower, I go to work, I work until lunch, and we've scheduled out our entire day, right? Because structure makes sense. And so when God gave us structure, it made sense to us, right? He drew a line in the sand and said, don't cross that line. And yet we cross it time and time again. But we had a structure for it. We knew what we were getting into. And more importantly, God gave us a way of getting back good with him again, right? He gave us a way that said, if you do this thing, you're good, man. You're back. You're in my good graces again. I'll love you again. And that made it so easy for us. Because this new way, this whole Jesus way, following him, that's messy, right? That is a mess. Because in our minds, we have done nothing to earn that grace, right? We've done nothing to earn God's love in our lives. And yet God is just freely giving it to us. See, I learned something at SOS. I saw it, actually. I saw this at the SOS we went to this summer. We were doing car washes, and they were dollar car washes, except when someone came in, we gave them $1 and then washed their car, and then they left, and like they didn't pay us or anything. We got to give them $1. And some of the reactions that you see from adults when you try to hand them $1 and then do something for them, you would think that you were trying to like rob them in the moment. They're like, no, like get away from me. You can't, I'm not taking your $1, right? Because they've done nothing for us to deserve that $1, right? They think about it and they're like, you can't just give me $1 for no reason. That would make no sense. If we just had $1, well, that's just how it is, right? So all of a sudden, we're missing the ark, right? We're missing it. We're living in this way of missing it because that structure was easy. And grace is just messy. Because we don't deserve it. We've done nothing to earn it. We don't understand it. We don't have to understand it, right? There's nowhere that says that we need to understand God's grace. It just says we have to accept it, right? We just have to accept it in our lives. That God is going to not make us live under this structure anymore. And instead, we're going to be living in grace, living in freedom, in God's love. The third thing, I think I might have skipped the second thing, but if I did, it was that we don't miss the covenant. But the third thing is another one will not be made. That means that another covenant is not going to be made. God is not going to give us another set of rules to follow. And I've tried really hard in this message and to not say that Jesus coming for us, that's the new covenant, right? Because I don't think that Jesus coming for us was a new covenant in the same sense as the Ark of the Covenant, right? God didn't send Jesus and say, you know what? If you guys can live up to Jesus' life, then I'll love you, right? If you do everything Jesus did on this side, you do everything that he did, follow his rules exactly, then I'll love you, right? That's the same promise as the Ark of the Covenant. I don't think that Jesus coming was a new covenant. Instead, Jesus coming was a new way. It was a new way of living, a new way for us to get our salvation, to earn our salvation. I'm going to go back to kids again just because I work with kids, okay? One of the most difficult things for me that I've learned, that I've done at the Stewart home, has not been disciplining a student, has not been having to yell at a student or raise my voice. One of the hardest things for me to do is to watch one of my kids struggle. To watch them struggle at something and know that I can do it for them. right? Know that I can go over there, I could come over there, and I could fix that problem for you. And yet I just can't do that, right? Because if I went over there and fixed that problem, they would never learn. They'd never learn how to do it on their own. And I think that all of the parents in the room would agree that that the hardest part of that is knowing that you could help and not helping, not going over there and just doing it for them. And I don't think that that's something that like as humans that we've decided like this is it, right? Right? Like we've decided that this is the way, like it's a human flaw that we feel bad, right? We want to fix other people's problems. We want to fix all of the problems that people have around us when we see kids that are struggling, right? When you see your siblings and they're struggling, you want to just fix those problems. I've been told time and time again in my life that men have this problem, that men like to fix things, and women are like, no, we just want you to listen, right? Right? We have a problem, but it's not just a guy thing. It's not just a girl thing. It's a human thing. That we want those problems to be solved. We feel bad about those things. We feel for those people. And I think that God saw Israel struggling. God saw his children struggling to keep that covenant. He saw them struggling to earn their way into heaven. And God was like, no, you know what? This time, I'm not going to do it for you, right? He tried that. God tried that with Noah and with the flood. He tried to cleanse it and make it work again. And we still failed, right? God decided that this time, he wasn't just going to come down and fix all of our problems for us. Instead, he was going to show us a new way. He was going to show us a new way to do this thing. And the thought that comes into my mind is when a kid is trying to learning to tie their shoe. We've all been there. We all had to learn at some point to tie our shoe. And for me, I don't want to just go over and tie somebody's shoe, tie a kid's shoe for them, because they'll never learn, right? They'll never learn to tie their shoe on their own. But instead, I'd rather walk over there and untie my shoe and say, hey, follow my lead, right? Do what I do right here so that you can learn to do it, so that you can learn how it works. And that's what God did for us. God didn't say that he didn't just come down and tie the shoe for us. He sent Jesus down to live a life that we could follow. He sent Jesus down to live a life that we were supposed to set an example for us. He was setting an example for us to follow that lifestyle. Wasn't going to do it for us, right? He didn't do it for us. He gave us a teacher. He gave us somebody that we could let lead us into salvation. I make an emphasis on the word let because it's not Jesus came down and he's forcing you into salvation. It's something that we decide. All right, God, I've tried it on my own, right? I've tried to do all the right things. I've tried and tried again, and I'm failing at it. So it's time for me to just let Jesus live. Let Jesus lead me into salvation. When we decide that we're ready to let Jesus lead, man, the old way is gone. The old way is gone. We don't have to think about it anymore. We're never going to remember it. We're not going to miss it anymore. We're done trying to do it on our own because Jesus did it. When you accept that Jesus did it for you, man, life gets so much simpler. There's no more in and out of salvation where you're walking through that door and all of a sudden, oh man, I'm outside again. How'd I get out here? I made a mistake. I got distracted. I'm out here again. There's no more walking through the revolving door like that. Instead, you're walking through with Jesus on the other side. And when you get there, he says, no, don't get distracted this time. Come in here, walk with me. Walk with me. I'll lead you through. You're not doing this by yourself now. You're doing it with me. All right, why don't you guys stand up for me? We're going to sing a couple more songs here, and the prayer team is going to be in the back if there's anything that you guys need prayer for, and we have people back there that would love to pray with you guys, okay? In this time, as we sing, as we worship, I'm going to challenge you guys to think about, on an individual level, to think about what it would take in your life. What it would take in your life to go from this revolving door salvation where you're trying to do it yourself, right? You're trying to please God. You're trying to earn your way in. What would it take to go from that salvation to a salvation where you're just following Jesus, man? You are trying your best every day to follow Jesus. You're loving Jesus and you've accepted him and he is leading you into salvation. Thinking about those things, reflect on those things. Let's just continue to worship.